Hey everyone, how's it going today? Welcome back to another update. So the big story that's going on right now with the world of just fourth stimulus package is that President Joe Biden is now planning tomorrow from release date, or specifically on Thursday, October 28th, 2021. He is essentially planning right now to leave the country. Now, he's not going to be doing this to go on vacation, so that is the good news. It's not, like the Congress, let's go on vacation for who knows, 1-2 weeks kind of story. He's leaving specifically because he's going to a climate summit that's going on in Europe, specifically in Rome, Italy right now, in order to try to talk about just climate change all around the world, his plans, and what he basically hopes to do that. Now, the great news is that even though he will be leaving the country, they are still going to be continuing negotiations. In fact, there is definitely right now a sense of urgency to try to get it done as fast as possible. So the great news is that while it is true he's going to be leaving the country in a little bit, what is also true is that their negotiations will still very much continue. It's just going to dominantly be between a lot of the people in Congress. So examples like that has pretty much been like Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, you guys probably know the key figures, Nancy Pelosi, and then just a lot of other politicians that are just jumping in to kind of give their particular input, like AOC, Wyden, and that entire basically family of people. But the big thing right now is that there are also several things inside of the fourth stimulus package that we pretty much have more or less confirmed will be changed. So the big thing in today's update is I really just want to talk about what's been going on in the world of fourth stimulus package, and then I also want to talk about the specific changes that we now know so you guys can get up to speed of what's actually physically inside of this package, and maybe end this by talking a little bit about the tax situation that's kind of going on, because this is actually very related. If this is confusing, maybe by the end, hopefully it'll finally clarify everything that's going on. So with that being said, we're gonna get started, but as always, maybe real fast before we begin, consider smashing the like button because it is always greatly appreciated, and we are at the end of the day at least making progress, so I think that's pretty great news. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell for similar videos, and as always, feel free to comment any questions, thoughts, predictions, or honestly just really anything. Always great to say hi to new and familiar faces. So with that being said, let's get this video started. So maybe to start off with, to talk a little bit about the current changes that we pretty much now know is that because they will now more or less be taking the package and reducing it from the original 3.5 trillion to the 2 trillion, or just slightly under $2 trillion, as most of you guys know is that one hard news maybe to take in is that they will be removing many programs that originally were going to be inside of the plan. Examples of this it's been pretty much originally, again, it was speculated, but the difference is that now we pretty much have a near confirmation is that they're going to be removing the free community college. So sadly, that's going to be taken out. And then a lot of the programs that we've been talking about, the good news is that they will still be included inside. We'll just say general news is that they will be taking a lot of those programs, however, and essentially creating a reduction from it. So for example, the child tax credit, it was originally trying to be permanent, but now it looks like more or less they're going to be taking it down to about 1 to 2 years. This also applies to the Medicaid expansion. They were going to try to expand it. The great news is that there are still plans for it. However, it looks like it's going to be reduced now to something a lot more smaller / shorter term. So that is just one thing to note about it. They are going to be reducing paid family leave. I do know there were some questions about how does this physically work. So what this program essentially is that when you guys typically take a job, a lot of jobs, they provide paid family leave already, in the sense that if you needed to take off to basically help out your family, things such as maybe you end up having a child, a maternity leave of some kind. What this does is that essentially the only one thing about our country is that while there are many jobs that thankfully provide it, at the end of the day it is something that's not necessarily required to be done in every single job. So in other words, there are still jobs that do not necessarily have have this kind of program. So by inserting this, what this is going to do is that they're going to make this as a requirement, so jobs that normally do not provide this kind of benefit will now be providing this benefit. However, because they are reducing the bill, it does mean is that they are going to be reducing certain things, and in this specific cases is that they were originally going to do it for 12 weeks, so basically about 3 months. Now they're going to be reducing it to about 4 weeks, so basically 1 month. So it's still a pretty, it's a pretty good deal, more or less, but of course it will be a lot smaller, and I think that's the big thing to note about it. Now, in terms of what they actually physically are working on right now, if they're truly that close to the deal, so the big people that were really kind of in conflict, as most of you guys know, was essentially Joe Manchin and then also Kristen Sinema. You've probably seen lots of videos already about how they've kind of had some kind of conflict. The good news is that they've definitely started to resolve a lot of it, or they've basically already resolved a lot of it. So for example, Joe Manchin wanted to reduce the size of the package, and now the package is a reduced size from the 3.5 into the slightly under $2 trillion. So that part has hopefully been taken care of. On Kristen Sinema's side, which I feel like she's a little bit less talked about, the big thing that she's really concerned about is essentially things related to just tax and funding. She essentially is trying to do a lot of programs, or she wants to basically change up programs that are currently in the bill related to tax policies, basically about how we are going to potentially have the money to actually physically pay for the bill. She was a little bit quiet about this originally, so maybe this is some new information, because now she has officially come out, so we actually know not just the fact that she was kind of uneasy about what's inside of the package, but what that physically is, because before she kind of just stated she doesn't really isn't fully, in support of the package. But now we actually physically know the reasonings to why she feels that particular way. So, like a lot of things in life, you always have to kind of try to communicate things, because it's, you can never read people's mind, and that's probably the best way, whether this is, in the world of negotiation, stimulus packages, relationships, business, or anything like that. That's kind of why communication really is one of the most important things. So the great news is at least she's finally speaking about it. Now, within taxes, probably the last thing that I really want to talk about, and it is something that a lot of people don't necessarily just, concern over, but it is actually relatively important, and it's basically all about the billionaires tax program. Because one of the things that they are trying to insert into the fourth stimulus package, and this relates to kind of the specific part of the taxes, is that there are many politicians that are kind of opposed to raising taxes, but at the same time, taxes are pretty much going to be the way that they're going to be able to fund and actually pay for the package, because otherwise it's basically like money that's coming from thin air, which is leading to a lot of the inflation situation that has been going around. So what they're hoping to do is that they are negotiating a lot of policies relating to how they want to create a system to essentially tax a lot of the billionaires that are inside of our country, because when you have $1 billion, even being able to tax 1%, which in this situation it's actually more like, let's just say, over 10%. But even being able to tax, let's just say 1% of $1 billion, we are already talking about, like, I believe that's basically about $10 million. 10% is basically about $100 million. And if you do that to basically every billionaire, that's a lot of money. So the big thing is that they want to kind of negotiate not just about doing the tax, but about what is physically taxed. So for example, there are some talks now is that they may try to start to tax things in the stock market, but also about stocks even if you don't sell them, which is also called unrealized gains. If you're familiar with the stock market, you probably know what that is. If you are not familiar with the stock market, essentially the idea is that in the world of just money, there's a strategy where a lot of rich people can actually, technically you can even do this as just even like, with a humble salary. But essentially the way it works is that if you buy a lot of assets, whether this is in the stock market, whether this is in real estate, you can kind of basically build up the money. But the great news is, as long as you don't sell, all of the values of everything you own starts to increase, and you will essentially never get taxed on it until you sell. This is something that they want to potentially change. So it's going to potentially, impact definitely, of course, a lot of billionaires, but potentially even us, because it impacts the amount of money that they have to be able to work with. And this is potentially some money that they may be using for basically just government programs. So for us, where this comes in is things like child tax, Medicaid, food stamps, government support, maybe unemployment and stimulus checks. It's very subtle right now. Again, most of you guys know, but at the end of the day, it is still something that can possibly happen. Now, everything that they finally have to work on, they're hoping to try to finally get all of these finishing touches settled by the end of this week. And also because this also happens to be the end of the month, which is essentially the deadline that they had originally promised that they were going to finish all of this stuff. This is according to our politicians' words. So this is not what I, am stating. This is what they've specifically stated, that I'm just basically passing the information on. Whether we can believe this, that's basically up to personal belief and speculation. So feel free, if you guys want, feel free to share maybe what you guys think is going to actually physically happen, whether they're going to actually finally approve and get this package all the way through and done. But beyond this, that's what I really just wanted to share in today's update. So if you guys found that relatively insightful, maybe consider smashing the like button. You guys can decide, but it is always greatly appreciated. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell for more. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts, predictions, or maybe what you think about this current package or think is going to be happening going forward from here. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.